Well, happy Friday, everybody. I'm Nick Slavic. I'm the proprietor of the Nick Slavic Painting and Restoration Company. I'm also the host of this show, Ask a Painter Live. It's a weekly live Facebook show where I use all my 2 decades of experience as a craftsman and an entrepreneur to answer any questions. And we're going live through Be Live. It's an app. It's a piece of software that broadcasts through Ask a Painter. So if you guys are seeing this, there's a slight delay, maybe 20, 25 seconds, give or take, but it allows us to go split screen. Facebook has got rid of the dual live feature. So we have to do this in order to get one of my best friends in the industry, Chris Shank, the education guy from the PCA, on here. So today, and most shows of 2020 are going to be centered around mastering the basics. And this is a theme that I'm employing in my own company, which is I have a belief that people who do basic things exceptionally, consistently, will always do much better in the long run. So that's sort of what I'm focusing on. And a lot of the questions that we're dealing with right here through Ask a Painter Live are going to also kind of dovetail in with that sort of thing. So comments, you guys can type in any question, any comment, anything you want to talk about below. We're going to talk about some very specific things about the show today, and then we can go, as usual, we can talk about anything you guys want. So as soon as we get a notification that Chris Shank is here and up, we're going to bring him on. Otherwise, I'm in the home office today. We're supposed to be having this insane blowout snow blizzard, and I'm not seeing any snow yet. So concrete was delayed. We were supposed to pour the last bit of concrete at the Slavic House project, and that did not happen. So, I see Chris Shank. He's primping. He's getting ready down below. Chris Shank, you ready? Okay, 1, 2, 3. Chris Shank, up here. Oh, then there's a delay. How's it going, man?
Good. How you doing, man?
Really good, really good. You look really nice today. You got a job interview or something, or what?
Well, I'm just, it's a new start to a new year on Ask a Painter, and I'm going to start doing up right, man. I'm going to dress and talk the part and poetry all the time, pure poetry, philosophy, whatever.
We're not going to let you go without that stuff. And of course, I would dress down today because I'm on family time today. I did a little bit of work this morning, some marketing work. And as soon as I'm done here, I go on Friday afternoon family time. But you, of course, dress up. Absolutely not casual Friday for you. Absolutely casual Friday for me. And now I feel bad. I'm going to have to wear some sort of suit next time we do this.
Well, and sparkling water. So, it's professional around here. We're doing the right thing. Always do the right thing. That's what I'm trying to communicate here.
Even when nobody's looking.
That's right.
Yeah. All right, man. No, go ahead. Go ahead, Chris Shank.
Okay. PCA contractor question of the week. Oh, I see the rolling script there and everything. Oh, nice. See, we're using the same third-party app here, and it's looking nice, man. I like it.
Well, you're the one who turned me onto it, and this thing is insanely user-friendly and insanely professional, so thank you.
Well, I like turning you onto stuff. So, here's the question of the week. If we just move right along.
Yes.
Okay. What are some steps contractors can take in the early part of the year? I'm kind of looking over. What are some steps contractors can take in the early part of the year to start planning for more profit? So, everybody wants to start off the year right and do the right kind of things, I guess, to kind of streamline production, get the right people on your team. But how do you plan more profit for the year? And do you do that every single year? Or are you kind of going off like a 3 to 5 year plan? What are you doing at the beginning of the year for profit increase?
Well, so again, in a long line of unsatisfying answers that I give most people, the best thing you can do right now to plan for this year is to have planned last year and collected data. So it starts off with my theme for this year, which is mastering the basics, which is the best thing. If you only did one thing as a contractor, excuse me, I'm so excited, I'm almost allergic to it. If you did only one thing, job cost. That means every time you're finished with a job, take your revenue minus your materials, factor in your labor, and actually figure out how that job did, and then use that as a data point to improve. And if you did that for all of your hundreds and hundreds of jobs from last year, you're going to find out where you need improvement on. And that's the one thing that instantly would raise the standards in our industry, would instantly allow people to plan for next year. And it's the easiest thing on earth. You can almost do it in your head on every job.
So do you find that a lot of the contractors you talk to, without throwing anybody under the bus, is this kind of a normal thing for people to do? Do you think most people get it? Where do a lot of contractors kind of fall off that wagon?
This is the saddest thing ever, which is there's some contractors who have much larger businesses than mine who have never done this before. And they're basically just like, it's the another one of my favorite contractors in the industry just called it cowboy. People are just cowboying through. They just wake up earlier, they work harder, they do more, and in the end, they sort of hope things work out, but they don't really know if it works out. And I would say, based on, I have an abnormal data set because I get a lot of people just contacting me and we talk about this. And the first thing we have to figure out is, how's each job doing? Like, are you losing your tail on every job? Are you killing it on every job? How is it? And that shows a lot of the problems. And I would say, Chris Shank, 10 to 20% of the people I talk to have actually done this or done it consistently.
Wow. That's pretty shocking. But that also speaks to the busyness and just feeling constantly this barrage of maybe jobs. You got a lot of jobs, or maybe the desperation to get jobs. You're either too busy or not busy enough and trying to get busy. And then to kind of step away from it all and say, okay, it's good for now. It's rolling. Now, how do we plan forward? How do we stay proactive? And do you think that's part of the problem? Do you think it's our industry, or do you think it's business ownership in general? Is it that our industry is more entrepreneurs?
We have data, which is our industry is way behind most other, and then extrapolate that to the trades. We are ancient compared to this. I mean, I always use the example of my father taught me some stuff when I was younger. He's just the generation above me. He's still operating in this industry, doesn't own a cell phone, doesn't own a computer.
Right. Yeah, that's interesting. Wow.
So listen, that tells you that's the generation now that is still operating in this trade. So,
That's an opportunity. That's an opportunity for people who want to gain the competitive edge. Like, not only is it good for your business, but in the marketplace, not a lot of people are doing it. So
I agree. And what's interesting too is one thing that I've seen too, and I've noticed this within myself, and then once I noticed it myself, I started noticing it in others, is business owners tend to have a certain personality type. They tend to be sort of like they're like the trailblazers. They're the one who takes the arrows when they go first out west, and they like to create stuff. What they don't like to do is sit down and review last month's financials. What they want to do is get out there and make some jobs happen. I want to get some more leads. I want to do some more estimates, find some more painters. And that's hard. And it's hard for me to sit down and have to say, we did all this. It was a great month. Now you got to go through every line item from last month and just verify. I hate verifying.
So what's the answer to that? Get somebody to do it for you?
Yes. But part of this, knowing your numbers and mastering the basics, is feeling it too. Data plus feelings. And I outsource my accounting, but I trust but verify, which is there's some things that they just don't know. So you need to feel this as well. If you just outsource all your stuff and never check it or feel it or whatever else, it's not going to be useful to you. So what we do is just the mechanical bookkeeping, the physically like taking my bank accounts and putting them into QuickBooks and arranging them in some legal order in there so I don't go to jail for tax fraud. That is done by somebody else. But on weekly metrics, they only do it monthly, because that's when the bank reports come out. Right. Internally, I do it weekly. So I make sure that I feel it every week so that if you want to make a change, I have 52 opportunities to change it in 2020 versus 12 opportunities to change something if something goes wrong. So
yeah, that's good. I think that's a good equation. Knowing your numbers is data plus feelings.
Data plus feelings.
There's a Nick-ism right there, man. I was going to
listen. Everything, like you're big in the art world, the creation of art and things. Nothing is original. This is all condensed and concentrated down from little bits and pieces that I've had, mainly from you and from other people. But nothing is original.
That was good though. I haven't heard it before. I think it's really good.
Yeah. Well, listen. What else is going on with you, man? We want to hear before we want a deep thought. But what else? Expo.
Yes, that's exactly where I was going to go. Expo. You're going to be there. You're going to be presenting part 2 of Modern Apprenticeship, and talking about going into your numbers and knowing your numbers intimately and instinctually. How is it actually working? How are your employees doing? Talking about real production numbers and things like that. So excited, really excited about that. And matter of fact, I think you're turning that into a workshop, possibly to give in the next year. So and everybody needs to see that. And then we're going to have a lot of other presentations, obviously, at the expo, and excited about just the atmosphere. We have, I think it's about almost half of the people coming are first time.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's huge.
Well, actually, now it's a third. It was half about a couple weeks ago. Now it's about a third.
That's
so
huge.
A lot of people who come year after year are a little late in registering always. But yeah, it's more than we've ever had first-time attendees. So word's getting out about the expo, and people are excited. And I think we keep up in the game. This year we have workshops and continually expanding what we mean when we're trying to do the brain melds and how we accomplish the brain melds and how people interact together, how we pick our topics, panel discussions. I mean, some of the panel discussions are so cool. We're going to be talking about subs versus employees. What works and doesn't work, in what areas and what kind of companies it works and doesn't work, how to build out your office staff, your front office, getting into commercial. How do you get into commercial? What's the best ways to do it? When do I know it's right for me? When do I know it's wrong for me? I mean, those are just panel discussions. And we got the workshops, and we got presentations like yours that it's going to be hard to pick. And what's the solution? This is the last thing I'll say about it. The solution is bring your staff members, your high-level or leadership, your high-level leadership or middle management, bring them, conquer and divide. Go into these different places and then come back to a meeting and share all your ideas and inspire your entire team. That's what we want, because it's going to be impossible to choose. It really is.
Dude, it's Sophie's choice. Every year in the hallway when you're looking down the corridor with all the things, you're like, okay, I'm going to be disappointed whatever I do, but you got to pick one. And you're always like, oh, what did I miss? There's just so much good content out there. You're just like, oh man, you don't know how to choose sometimes.
No. And so that's the only thing I have. Oh, one more thing we have is we are trying to get as much as we can on audio, every presenter on audio. And we're going to make that available to attendees to have access to that. I think we're doing like a 3 to 6 month access thing. So that way, if you don't attend everything, you can still hear it. It's not the same thing as getting live interaction, but that's a big perk. And sometimes audio fails and doesn't work as well. We're trying to make sure everybody's mic'd, so you've really got to be there, do your best. But we're going to try to provide some of that. That's the way we solve that problem. But somebody talked to me about that. Like, well, you really need to have this class, doubled again and again and again. Like everybody wants to get into your class, and obviously it's just not going to happen. Not everybody's going to be able to get in, but. And so what people tell me, it's the paradox of choice, though. They say, you should have this a million times over. I'm like, well, which one do you want to replace it with? I'm like, they say, well, this one over here. I'm like, well, a lot of people want that one. So when you pick out something, you realize that somebody's going to be less off. The problem is you want all of it because it's all good. So that's a good problem to have. And the paradox of choice is choosing between two good options. I just remind people, hey, with what you're picking, you have the power to select. So pick the thing you want. That's something you want more than anything else, obviously. So it's a paradox. It's a paradox. It's all paradox, Nick.
You want to talk paradox, man. Listen, you better show up for my class, people out there, because you've seen my graphs and all my colors and my fancy stuff there. Good luck with the audio on that one. You're going to need to follow along in real time on some graphs, man.
They absolutely need to get there. Yeah, it was good. And the other thing is interacting with each other, because they can walk right out of there and go to a brain meld where you're going to have a table at the brain meld, and then people can interact with each other on that idea from your class and then talk to you. And there's just nothing like it. So we do hear a lot of people that want to make it, and they're like, I can't afford it for myself or for my team. It's a tough year for my business or whatnot. So we're trying to honor that and say, hey, how do we extend the content while encouraging people to get there? That's a paradox. Just like me wearing a button-up shirt to the show is a paradox.
Do you, a personal question, do you go undershirt or no undershirt?
I undershirt, but I V-neck it. Yeah.
Classy. Dude, you double casual Friday'd me. You got the V-neck and the button up. Man,
right.
I feel like such a schlub now.
Yeah, and again, don't forget the sparkling water, because that dresses up. You can wear jeans in, and with this, you're in the right spot.
Classy. It looks like you're making good choices.
Thank you. Mom will be proud.
Dude, so, okay, last thing, and then we need a deep thought. So I get inundated, as you know, with direct messages. I give out my email address for better or for worse, and I get lots of emails from people. And last night I had a conversation with a young business owner saying, hey, man, listen, here's the cost for me to go to Expo. Is it worth it? And I always start off with saying, I'm not paid to say this. I'm not a company man. I'm not a shill for the PCA. But if you want to take a look at my graph of what you would call, success with certain things within the trade, magically the point when it started going up like this is probably not coincidental that I started interacting with the PCA and the people in the PCA. So data point. All I can do is give people a data point, and the people I've met, you and everybody else that surrounds you, has opened up my world. So, how much are you willing to invest in your business? We buy $62,000 pickup trucks, and we won't spend $1,500 sometimes for some of the best education in the industry. So,
it's what would you pay for inspiration? What would you pay to have just a fresh view and a vision of what you're trying to accomplish in your business? Rubbing shoulders with people like you. I see. The thing is, when I ask you about that, like how things changed when you got into PCA, I think you bumped into some smart ideas, but I think more than anything, it kind of challenged you to rub shoulders with people like yourself, with your type of brain, that kind of inspired you to come up with new stuff and to bring back and share that. That's the best I could come up with, because it's never one. I don't hear people saying it's any one piece of information. Sometimes something really did help, but it's the atmosphere. Don't you think it's more about the atmosphere?
Yeah, I mean, what happened is it's funny when I see the first time contractors there now, and I say this only having been 5 years, maybe, if that, 4 or 5 years. The first year, there's a whole bunch of just tactical knowledge that you've been exposed to and you take back, and it's immediate wins, low hanging fruit. After that, it's that perspective creep. People call you on BS. You say, oh, we're killing it over here. And then we start saying, well, how's your job costing looking? What's your gross profit? And they're like, what's gross profit? And they're like, have a seat. Let's talk. And then you get a long weekend of conversation. And it's what after my first year, after people tell you about apps and specific like tactical information, it's all perspective, man.
Yeah, I agree with that for sure.
Deep thought, Chris Shank.
Deep thought. Okay, here's a deep thought. I had to bring this with me. And sometimes I do this. I think that this moment, everything starts over. Who you are is all you have, and what you know is your only possession. The world around you is your raw material. And I think with that sometimes that, it's our chance to do something new. Every moment, you could kind of have a start over moment in your business. I always apply it to business because that's what's most pertinent to our audience. But truly, you can do something new. We're always encouraging people to think like that. You just got to believe it. You got to see yourself born new in this moment, starting over. This is all you have, and truly, this is all we've ever had. Like you don't bring all that other stuff with you to each moment. This is what's in here is what you bring with you. But that's enough.
You put that on Instagram, didn't you?
Yeah.
I was actually going to bring you your own deep thought today, and that was going to be it.
No way.
I read it and I was like, hey man, that's actually really cool. It makes you actually think, like, if that was the case, it's a very interesting sort of thought experiment. So yeah, I was going to surprise you with it. I'm glad you just organically came up with it.
That's awesome. Yeah, I wasn't. That's funny. We did not plan that one out, but
that's awesome, man. Listen, those are the deep thoughts. That bring us to you. I mean, everybody's attracted to Chris Shank because of that, and you're taking that level of thinking and applying it to the industry. So thanks, man. We all appreciate it.
Well, thank you, and excited to see you at the Expo and a couple more times on Ask a Painter before then.
Absolutely, man. And Expo is going to be awesome this year. So look forward to seeing you and everybody else.
Likewise. Thanks, Nick.
All right, man. Take it easy.
Bye.
All right, guys. So we have Dominic. How's it going? Jason Paris. Thanks for watching. Jason Paris, home on convalescent leave. Chris Shank. I'll put you back up, Chris Shank. He's dancing around. All right. That's what you get, man. Be careful what you do. So, okay. So thanks everybody. Thanks everybody for watching here. We are going to go over quickly the thesis of 2020, which is mastering the basics, and something, like I said, I'm doing in my business. And there's two basic things when I think of mastering the basics. In my company, it's my standard operating procedures. But for Ask a Painter and all the people that I correspond with here, it's job costing and industry benchmarks. And why? So everybody that I interact with, we all agree that we need to raise the standards of the painting industry, and not only the painting industry, but the trades in general. And I believe that we can do that by running very solid businesses that give apprentices, decent human beings, craftspeople, the opportunity and the inspiration to come into the trades, pay them well, and give them opportunities. Likewise, if you foster those great people around you, inspire them to do good work, you're going to make a whole bunch of happy clients around you. And it's that sort of thing that always that I'm trying to work for. You add in the third of that triumvirate, your family. If we run a good business, we have happy people around us, we leave a trail of happy clients, magically you will make a better home life for yourself too. So it's sort of that three-legged stool that we're always focusing on. And I believe, just like we were talking with Chris Shank, is that maybe 15% of all the people that I talk to have actually job costed. So what is job cost? And we are going to take a look. Let me, there, so it's not blocked. So job costing. Job costing is basically, when I was a single person company, I used to job cost by taking a paper estimate, flipping it over and doing revenue minus paint, divided my labor hours, and that gave me a revenue per hour thing. So I'm going to walk you guys through some simple job costing. And as the year goes on, we're going to take deep dives into this and show you how different types of businesses do this. The goal of job costing is to figure out if you actually did well on a job or not. This thing, if you track one thing in your company, at the end of every job, you should sit down and job cost. And here is a typical job. I use this house. This is a a pretty cool looking house, just to catch people's attention. But let's just say we were to paint this house here, and we charge $5,775. Now, just as a quick estimate, these aren't exact numbers, whatever else. I'm just extrapolating to give a good thing. Our materials. At the end of every job, all we figure out was, I keep it simple. I just use coatings. I don't use sundries in mine, because you can get real granular by tape, plastic, putty, all this other stuff. But if you make it too complicated, you won't comply with it. So I just say, what are the coatings? We'll figure out sundries. Primer, we use 4 gallons, $22 a gallon. That's $88 of primer total. For the top coat, we use 22 gallons at $48 a gallon. That gives us about 1,056 in that. So total materials, 1,144. 20%. I like percentages because that's sort of the benchmark. The industry standard is about 15% materials on every job. So let's say, with 3 or 4 colors of paint, we want a little more, or we use the premium stuff on this, so we use 20% here. So now already when you're tracking this job, you may say, hey, this job went well. Technically, if you want to look at it, you went 5% over on materials. Now, that's not necessarily bad. You can always make up for it in labor. So let's take a look at labor. So these are all called variable expenses. And the first job costing that we're looking at here is, I like to do there's an owner of the company who paints, and an apprentice, like a helper that helps them paint. And this is how, there's a couple methods of job costing. So we track the owner's hours here. Let's say the owner put in 30 hours right alongside their apprentice. The owner, technically, we don't have an hourly rate. We don't have a paycheck. We get whatever is left over at the end. So the reason I do this form of job costing is to track a revenue per hour. This is variable. It's just judged by your hours. But you do pay your helper $15 an hour. So we got 30 hours times 15. That's about $450 in wages. For the owner, we don't know yet. We're going to figure this out the back end way. So we're looking at about 8% of the labor that it cost us. So if we take the amount of revenue for the job minus the materials, minus that, and then we divide it by the owner's hours, 30, we find out that owner generated about $77 an hour in gross profit. Now, what this number doesn't tell you is everything you get to keep. You still have to run your company. So there's going to be insurance, there's going to be overhead, there's going to be vehicles, there's going to be things that aren't attached to that job underneath this. But this is one metric that I use. Now, it's an imperfect metric, but it's a metric I like to track because it's a quick pulse. It tells you right away what you can do and just kind of puts a pulse to it. So job costing number 2, a different version here. So now we have an owner plus an apprentice, but we're going to actually do gross profit. If you know what your rate is, it varies by owner, but if you have an owner, or if you have 2 people do it and you manage the job and you don't touch the job, this would be the same thing. So again, our materials will stay the same. We got 1,144, which would be 20%. And let's say that this owner generates about $50 an hour, or you use that for a benchmark there. So your total labor that it would cost you is 1,950. That's 34%. So industry benchmarks are 15% for materials and 40% for labor. Now, you can see they underperformed by 5% here. They went 5% over on materials, but they went 6% under on labor. So what the industry shoots for generally, and again, you want to do better than this. This is just a benchmark. This is a 50-yard line where you can do better or you can do worse, the over-under. And they did 46% gross profit. Now, industry standard is 40% gross profit, and they overperformed by 6%. So that'll basically tell you this number, 2,681, is your gross profit number. 46% is your gross profit percentage. Some people call this contribution margin. It's gross profit is more sort of universally understood. So before we go to our third example here, let's see what we got for questions here. Oh, Dustin, thanks for watching. Monty, Ryan, thanks for watching. Jason Paris, Dominic Crowley. Love watching Dominic Crowley's work. Amplios. I talked to Amplios this week. Good luck, man. Leonard Shepard. I'm a one-man band. I have one apprentice. How do you manage your time to do all of your estimates and the field work while you grow your business? Oh, man, this is an awesome one. So when you're growing your business, just got to work harder, man. Like it depends what you want. So my daily routine when I was an owner operator where I painted every day and I also did everything else. This was my schedule for me plus one, me plus two, plus three, plus four, and then eventually we branched off a little bit. But basically, what I would do is between 4 and 6 every morning, I would do whatever work I had to do to get the, if I had some estimates, some bookwork, something, I would do that. From about 6 to 4, I would paint. And then from about 4 to 7 every night, I would do estimates. I wouldn't do any estimates on Friday evening. It was only Monday through Thursday. So again, it's a long day, but I didn't want to let up production. I wanted to be on site all day to train my people. And so again, it's not easy. You don't have to do that. You can certainly work, 9 to 4, 9 to 5, have a leisurely morning, maybe get some work done in the morning. Take weekend estimates, things like that. I always put the foot down with the help of my wife that no Friday evenings and no weekends. So I just said, you know what? I got Monday through Thursday and a little bit of Labor Friday, and I'm just going to use up sun up to sundown. And basically, nobody saw me for a bunch of years. We didn't have a bunch of kids at that time either, so it was more like a business building thing. But I'm glad I put in the effort then, so I'm not having to do it now. Interestingly enough, let's see if I can share with you guys here. Let's see if my screen will. There's a slight delay. I'll actually show you guys my schedule. Oh, come on. There might be a little bit of delay here. All right, I don't want to get rid of that. We may lose that. So what I'm going to do is I can share my Google Calendar next time, but I've fallen into this awesome routine recently, which is Mondays, we have a war room meeting where everybody in the company meets from 8 to 9. It used to be 6. We moved it back to 7. Now we moved it back to 8 to give everybody a little more prep time. So 8 to 9 war room meeting. I have a 2-hour production meeting with my production managers right after that. I'll be bringing on a salesperson in the first quarter, and then we will have a sales meeting after that. And then I spend all afternoon just catching up in the office, just bulk stuff, anything I can do, verifying financials, checking in with crews, things like that. It's just catch-up day. Monday afternoon is catch-up, and I'm usually done by about 5, dinner with the family, put the kids in bed. Every morning from 4 to about 8, I'm in the office doing business development, which is basically just number 1, catch up. Number 2, check all your messages on social media, start following up with leads, scheduling estimates, and then usually from about 8 to 12, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I'm out in the field training my employees. And that's something new for 2020. I'm physically going to job sites, and I'm taking my experience as a master craftsman and a 28-year veteran of the craft, and I'm trying to help out the apprenticeship program and accelerate a lot of this learning, because we're hiring people at a breakneck speed, and I want them to be inculcated into our company. And then Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, noon to about 6 p.m., I make myself available for estimates. And then Friday, I leave the morning for business development. I have Ask a Painter at noon, and then I'm on family time. So I really, if you want to get technical, I really only work a 4-day work week now. Fridays are sort of a leisurely day. By leisurely, I mean I can get in my office the rest of my company's off. They have a 4-day work week, and basically there's nobody Slack attacking me, and I can just get a whole bunch of stuff done at my own leisure. I work on a lot of social media projects, a lot of video projects, things like that on Friday mornings. I do Ask a Painter, and then as soon as this is done, I'm on family time, usually about 1:30, 1 o'clock, 1:30 every Friday, and then nothing on the weekends. So, Leonard, I hope that helps, man. It's a tough thing. Right now, we're still in, I'm still putting in lots of hours in the business. I'm a morning guy, so I skew all my stuff kind of generally in the morning here. Michael Crane, my good friend. It's like watching Nick in the International Space Station. Yeah, this is a very fancy. It's a little too unbecoming of Ask a Painter. I like the gritty old, Facebook Live. We're still going to do that stuff, but when I'm office bound, you need a desktop. We'll be doing some of this stuff. So, Ryan, thanks a lot, man. I appreciate that. Ryan Cashoyo, Ryan Gorel, good afternoon to you too. Amplios, thanks for chiming in. Ryan. Time management, goal sheet, list different areas of life, list goals under area, list tasks under goals. Use this to load calendar before each week, block ideal time for recurring events, input one-time event. Yeah, man, listen, you got it. You got it. Create your ideal schedule. And I like one thing that I strive for above all else is simplicity. And, if I can just make things simple, I'll block off the same time every week to do everything. I'll put a slight constraint on me and say, here's a challenge. Try to do it in this time. And then just get out there and try to do it and adjust accordingly. So, all right. Leonard, no problem, man. Always happy to help. And nobody's got this figured out. I've solved a lot of problems in the first half of, owning my own business by just gritting it out, being a cowboy, just working harder, working longer. And eventually, that doesn't work forever. You can only grit out so much, and you got to be a little more smarter about it. But that usually just comes at that. So let's go on to a third version of job costing. Now, these get a little more complicated each time. You'll notice with number one, we came up with a revenue per hour. That's one of the things that I still track now. It's not as useful. We'll get into that in another show. It doesn't account for various levels of pay. It just accounts for how many hours in and how much revenue you generated per hour. So it can skew your data. And I ran my business for a lot of years off this, only because I didn't need the other stuff. Now, the second one was actually figuring out gross profit, which is the better way to do this. The only problem is most owners don't have a rate for themselves, so sometimes you can come up with it. Now, a little more akin to, we'll go to number 3, a little more akin to what I do now, which is I'm removed from a lot of the jobs. I still check in, I still train, I still coach and mentor, but it's a lot easier to figure this out, gross profit, when you're a little removed from it, because you're not trying to figure out a variable wage. Like, we don't have a set wage. So what you see here is there's a craftsperson, there's an apprentice, and then I have a F, which is field management. I didn't know this was very controversial, but I list my production manager as a variable expense because you can't really track each movement of them to a specific job, but it definitely is tied to the jobs. And variable expenses are things like paint and labor. When you have a job, they go up. When you don't have a job, they go down. Overhead is something that stays constant. You got a truck payment, you got a shop payment. Whether you have work or not, you're making that payment. That's all overhead. So what I do, let's say we're doing the same house here again, $5,775 in revenue. We use the same amount of materials, that doesn't change, except this time I break my production manager's salary out over the year, and we basically come up with a percentage of basically revenue. And this is all total percentages of total revenue. And we figure out that there's about $289 worth of time for her allocated to this job. So that brings us to a total of 37. So with a GP of 37. Now, labor is 37. So we're still overperforming a little bit. Now, what's easier is when you have all your employees do it and you have a craftsperson who's got 40 hours in. And again, I up the hours a little bit because, if the owner operator is usually the best painter in the business, and when they're not there, things take a little longer. That's not bad. It's just the reality and the truth, because nobody's going to care for our business like us or work as fast as us. So let's say we had 40 hours for a craftsperson, 40 hours for an apprentice. We pay that craftsperson 28, we pay the apprentice 15. Here's the wages that we pay each one. Now, what's interesting is that if you just calculate gross profit off wages, you're missing a lot of stuff because it costs quite a bit of money to employ somebody. And it's not just the $28 or the $15 an hour. There's something called burden, and that's FICA, unemployment, work comp. It's all the things that that are in addition to that. And I use 25% as the benchmark in my company. So I basically say if their wages cost me $600, it's going to cost me another 25% to employ them. And if you don't take that into account, you're going to skew your numbers pretty bad. So we're looking at total for this about 2,150 for labor. So that's about 37%. Again, they overperformed a little bit. The standard is 40%. Again, materials should be give or take 15, give or take. They underperformed a little bit of that, maybe used a little extra paint or premium stuff. My field management is in there. When you take all that down, you basically have 43%. And again, our benchmark, what we're shooting for is 40%. So technically, this job maybe overperformed by 3% generally. And I hate to say overperformed because some jobs are meant to be that way. They just are that way. Not everybody's a robot and can read the market and clients and get all those numbers straight. So those are 3 ways of doing it. This is one step more complicated. We have all employees. The owner didn't work on this job. We have burden in there, which makes it even more accurate. And we have field management in there. So if you have somebody overseeing the jobs, a project manager, a task manager, sometimes even people break out crew leaders, depending if they're not purely working all day. Like my field management doesn't paint. So they're just basically overseeing the jobs. And so basically, this is your gross profit number. This is your gross profit percentage. Now, as a business owner, you're responsible for everything that happens underneath this, the overhead. If your overhead goes wild, it doesn't matter what you do with this number here. It's going to be out of whack. So, Dominic, thank you so much, man. I appreciate it. So, all right. So I truly believe that these are the things that we can do right now to make sure that we really raise the standard of the industry. Now, when painters direct message me and they're saying, hey, man, I'm running into this, right? People want too much money to work for me. And, I'll say, well, are they actually asking for too much money, or are they asking for the right amount of money, but maybe your jobs aren't going correctly, so you can't pay them enough. And in turn, you have unhappy employees, you have unhappy clients, and then you resent everybody around you. Not a great thing. So if job costing is done, we can actually look and say, okay, it looks like your labor is actually performing really well. And technically, if you overperform 3% on every job, technically you could pay your people 3% more, maybe incentivize them some way, make them a little happier, and you'd still have wiggle room to be within sort of industry benchmarks, sort of things like that. So I will get into the actual benchmarks. The benchmarks, I'll give you a quick preview here. This is basically the quick and dirty financials for a 10-person painting company. Lots of discussion to be had on this, but I honestly want to hammer home the job costing and these benchmarks. So for this show, I think we've gone long enough today. I want to hammer this home. Every show we're going to be reviewing this because I honestly believe, seriously, if there's one thing that I could do to contribute to the betterment of everybody around me in this industry, it's basically getting guys to job cost and getting guys to understand that there is an industry benchmark out there. You don't have to follow it. Our goal is to be better than it, to make happier clients, happier employees, and a happy family around you. But it's a good place to start because it's not this big bang chaos where you're trying to I have no idea what's going on. It's like, oh no, here's a place to start. Just judge yourself off of this, and at least you have a benchmark to see where you're going. So in future episodes, we're going to be going over a whole bunch of benchmarks and things like that. But for now, guys, thank you so much. Dominic, I really appreciate it, man. Aaron, thanks as well, man. And pass the word around, guys. Like, if there's one thing people always say, they're raising their fists. Come on, let's raise the standard of our industry. What does that look like? I believe it's job costing. It's the basic information gathering that all painters should do to actually figure out, are you doing what's right? Is your company in line enough so you can provide opportunities for people and make happy clients? So, all right, everybody, I really do appreciate this. Thank you for hanging out on a Friday. And for anybody who wants this stuff, you know how to get it. Email me, nick@nickslavik.com. I share everything. I'm an open book, man. So I really appreciate everybody, and have a good weekend.